Hi guys, it's Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Marc Zicree of Space Command, and also Marc Zicree of Star Trek, if you check my credentials. But I wanted to put in a word on, I'm still in South Africa working on the feature Elaine and I are doing. But meantime, I wanted to chime in on the third episode of Star Trek Discovery, which I just watched. Many of you have seen my commentary on the first two episodes of Star Trek Discovery, and I shared many of your concerns with how those panned out. But the good news is the third episode is much, much better. And in fact, I wish it had been the first episode, as I'm sure many of you do. But I would urge you to stick with it because I think the show is going in the right direction. But they made a mistake, I think, or at least an ill-chosen direction for the first two episodes, which was to put people in contention, to put them in opposition, to start with something dramatic. But for me, what always made Star Trek work, and in the episodes of Star Trek that I've been affiliated with, what makes them work, is two things. Warmth between many of the characters, despite conflict, and a sense of wonder. And a sense of wonder is a big one with Star Trek. And in warmth, it's very interesting. I was thinking about this because with the original Star Trek, it took a while for them to understand who the characters were. But if you look at the first moment, in the first episode of Star Trek, the pilot with William Shatner, the second pilot, that aired as the first episode shot of Star Trek in the incarnation it ultimately aired in, Spock and Kirk are playing three-dimensional chess, and Spock is being his superior self, assuming he's going to win, and talking about how he doesn't have human emotions, and then of course he loses to Kirk, and Kirk smiles and says, "Are you sure you don't know what irritation is?" but he says it with a smile, and it's clear that they have affection for each other. They like each other, and particularly Kirk likes Spock. And that moment of warmth and human connection between the half-human and the human character really starts to establish what the show is. And in that first episode, they're going to the edge of the galaxy, and it's an amazing, wondrous event. And it leads to a dramatic event with Gary Lockwood and so forth. And if you haven't seen Where No Man Has Gone Before, that's the second pilot of the original Star Trek. It's well worth watching. It really holds up. It's terrific. Gary Lockwood got to do that episode and then 2001 right back to back, and that's an amazing thing. He's still around. He'll still sign photographs and all of that. Amazing stuff. But let's talk about Star Trek Discovery episode 3. So much better, much more dramatic. Introduced a lot of the regular characters because, as many of you know, our main character goes on to, Michael Burnham, goes on to the new ship, meets her new captain, Jason Isaacs, who's of course terrific in Harry Potter and so many other things. Wonderful British actor doing an American accent here. And Anthony Rapp plays the first fungus expert. They say he's the first gay character, which is true in Star Trek, but first gay regular, but for me, he's the first fungus expert. And ironically, I just met a fungus expert, a mycologist. Anthony Rapp plays an astromycologist. Met a mycologist here in South Africa, and he was thrilled to learn that Anthony Rapp was playing an expert in fungus, and he's going to spread the word among his mycologist friends. And but of course, as I've mentioned before, I worked with Anthony Rapp on Lazarus Man some years ago, and you can actually watch that entire episode where I wrote a role specifically for him that he was terrific in. You can watch that whole episode and see him as a younger incarnation of himself. But he's very, very good in this. And Doug Jones. They're finally having Doug Jones seem warmer, and as Saru, and he's making more of a connection with Michael Burnham. He was a little more Odo, kind of officious, that kind of character in the first couple of episodes. Now at least we're seeing a softer side, very important. Doug has great humanity as a person, and the more they let him play that warmth, that connection, the better. And then they introduced, I think, my favorite character so far, and that's Mary Wiseman, who plays Cadet Tilly. Now, interestingly enough, when we first meet her, she's overly talkative. She's very bright. I don't know if they're going to play her as having Asbergers. She certainly seems like she might have Asbergers. I think that'd be terrific if they did, because people with Asperger's are socially a little awkward, but they often have high intelligence. Many people with Asperger's end up gravitating towards science fiction because most people who read science fiction feel one way or another like outsiders, and particularly Spock, of course, was the great icon of outsider characters. And it'd be lovely if they did give her that. She would then be, I think, the first major character in a major science fiction show with Asperger's, and I think that would be terrific if they did that. But either way, whether they play that card or not, She's very, very good. She's very interesting. She says, now it's interesting, they have her hair back, more austere at the opening, and then they show her with this full head of wonderful red hair later. And she says she wants to be a captain someday. Hopefully they won't kill her off. I hope that she'll rise to the ranks, and I think she will. We'll find out as she continues as a character. They also had Michael Burnham mention her mother, her stepmother, her adopted mother, Amanda. Finally, of course, that was established in the original Star Trek, and she mentions Spock, but doesn't name him by name, and that was fine. That was fun. And there's an actress from Battlestar Galactica they introduced in this episode as a security chief. She's not my favorite actress, either in this or Galactica. I wish they'd gotten someone like Katie Sackhoff, who's terrific. And of course, Edward James Olmos was another. Well, that was a great cast by and large on Galactica. We'll see what they do here. I still feel the Klingon War is a paper tiger. The Klingons are paper tigers. It's like really Michael. Michael chose mutiny, but really the Klingons were intent on war no matter what. And when our captain says we've got to win this war, well, really, the Klingons aren't saying that they want to conquer Earth. They're just saying that they want to be left alone. And they don't want human ways to infect their culture, or the inclusivity of Starfleet to infect their culture. So we're not getting a sense that they want to conquer Earth. They just want to be left alone to their own space. So it's sort of like, well, okay, so why do we have to win this war? Why can't we just, come up with another alternative? Interesting question. And beyond that, there's an issue of a new technology where people can travel anywhere instantaneously. We of course know that won't succeed because we know where Star Trek goes in its chronology. Again, a challenge with setting it earlier in the Star Trek chronology, because certain things we know will happen, certain things we know won't happen. But again, the captain seems to be lying about his intent, so who knows? We'll see where this goes. And then beyond that, we have. We're setting up, who can we trust, who not to trust. The captain is not an admirable guy, apparently. He's got his motives. We'll see where it goes. But I think it's starting to find, I was going to say it's starting to find its feet. I don't think it's so much starting to find its feet because they wrote it en masse and plotted it en masse. But the fact that shows now aren't self-contained within an episode means that they can ramp up slower, but it also means that sometimes their beginnings are going to be a little more weak in terms of how they engage the audience. So I guess the bottom line of all of this is, let's stick with Star Trek Discovery. I think it will work. I think it is working, starting to work. I found this the most engaging of the 3 episodes so far. And of course, the funny thing is they're doing so many fewer episodes. Production values are still very, very high. Though at one point they have a Klingon go, shh, and it's like, would a Klingon really do that? Klingons, really? I don't know, but it was just a gag. There's a lot of stuff that's just kind of the gag and it pays off, and it's like, okay, like talking about a Beatles cover band seems very anachronistic to me. Talking about assigned seating seems very anachronistic to me. Just kind of, I always like to shy away from things that are overtly 20th century if I can, but that's just me. So we'll see where it all goes. Meantime, of course, we're working on Space Command. I'm going to be posting about Space Command. I'm going to be posting about a lot of stuff over the next few days. Blade Runner comes out. Blade Runner 2049 comes out this week. I'll be watching it in South Africa, interestingly